All right. So we are back on the next episode of the Combat Subs podcast, and I have my special guest here. Her name is Jena Bishop. You can see her right over there. And she's been a black belt since 2013, as long as my math is correct. She's a no-gi world champ. She's won at ADCC trials. She's won a bunch of European golds. She has fight to win titles. And she is soon, she's making a transition in her career that we'll definitely talk about later. But Jena, I really thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome. And also, I think the way that I found you is you also have a podcast with your husband, right? The Not Fighting podcast.
Yes, we do. So we started that like when I guess during the pandemic, like the beginning of it. So it's almost been a year now. We started it. We've been wanting to do it, but that kind of like gave us a little kick in the pants, I guess, to get it going.
For sure, right? And I mean, I guess you were locked in your house for a while. You had nothing else to do, so you might as well record each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that, like I said, that's kind of how I found you and kind of stumbled onto you and Tyler and that sort of thing. And I was watching one of the episodes and you mentioned like back in the day when you guys lived in Missouri, you used to have to drive like 8 hours or something like that to get to to like actually compete with other female competitors. So the first question I want to ask is, what's the funniest / worst thing that happened on one of those like 8-hour road trips going to a competition?
I mean, I think the thing that stands out to me most is like Tyler and I were driving through like rural Illinois, I believe, like in the middle of nowhere. It's nothing but like fields and like wind farms. And we were, I mean, I don't even know, like, I guess we were speeding. I don't know. We're in a hurry. We're cutting weight we were both like cutting weight really and had to like driving to weigh in basically like on this thing. So super dehydrated and just tired and whatever. And a cop pulls us over and he looks at both of us and he's like, I guess he thought Tyler was high. I don't know. He's like, I smell something funny in the car and like your eyes are all glassed over and that kind of thing. And he's like, yeah, that's just because I'm very dehydrated right now. Like, there's nothing going on here. Like, we don't have any drugs in the car. We're not high, like that kind of thing. And it was just like some bored cop in the middle of nowhere. And he like makes us get out of the car, searches the entire car. And he was searching for a long time, like way longer than what like was necessary, especially with no real grounds to like pull us over and search our car. So another officer pulls up and he's like, just let him do his thing. Don't worry. But we're like talking to the guy. The other officer was really cool. And we're like, hey, can you just like make sure he's not like planting anything? Because we didn't have any drugs. And like, he's been in my bag for a minute and it's making me nervous. And so he winds up like wasting like, I think almost an hour of our time searching our car. And then still writes us a speeding ticket anyway. I'm like, you just like did all that and then wrote us a ticket and it's like, oh, there's nothing here. And I'm like, yeah, like I told you, like, I don't know what you smelled. Like maybe it was a lotion I had on or something. Like I like essential oils. Like those were pretty strong and I don't know. So that was probably the thing that, I mean, getting pulled over on those trips is like kind of a theme. We had another one. I went to San Antonio. We were driving to San Antonio and I was like sleeping in the back, like on top of suitcases, like in the back of the SUV. And I was like on top of everything and the cop pulls us over. And I remember just like sliding like face first, like down into the back seat so I could sit and not be like, get us in trouble. And we got out of that one. So I don't know how, but yeah, those are some fun memories on those road trips.
For sure. Yeah. I had a similar experience. So I went to school in northern Indiana, which again, kind of the middle of nowhere. And I was on the baseball team and we all got in trouble. So we had to go run outside in like February until our coach got tired.
Nice.
And so we all had like face masks on and we had like beanies on. And so all you could see with our eyes, but it was 4 guys driving in a car where this is all you could see. And the cop pulled us over because he thought we were going to rob a bank. And we're like, no, our coach is just pissed off at us and we have to go run outside for the next 3 hours and we don't want to die.
That's so funny. Yeah, robbing banks, athletes, you just look suspicious, I guess.
Apparently, yeah. And the funk, the thing you smelled was probably you guys like sweating your faces off, still trying to cut weight, right?
Yeah, like it's not a pretty thing to be like cutting weight and it's not fun. So
So, you know, we talked about it, right? You used to have to drive a long way to go to compete against other females. How did you initially get into jujitsu? Because you started kind of way back in the day before it was cool.
Yeah. Well, because so Tyler, my husband, started training before me. He like got into it to jujitsu, found jujitsu because he like started watching like the Tough seasons on the Ultimate Fighter Tough, and then he's like, oh, that looks like fun. Like, so I'm like, yeah, my cousin trains jujitsu at this place nearby, and so he started training there, and he trained for about a year because he wanted to fight MMA initially, but and he did fight once, but fell in love with jujitsu. That was kind of like more our jam. Like, so we both just trained. Or he got me into it like a year after he started training because we were just working out together. I would come do like a conditioning class at the gym that they had on Sundays, and then, you know, kind of like got introduced to all the guys and everything that was going on, and then finally he convinced me to take a class, and I did, and then I really liked it, was hooked, and, you know, never looked back.
So that actually, you bring up a good point. So a lot of guys that do jujitsu want their significant others to also do jujitsu. Like it
Yeah.
took me like 3 years almost to finally convince my wife to start.
Yeah.
So do you have any tips other than just constantly nag them until you break them down and they give in?
I always tell people, well, I like, because at my gym, I have like a really, really nice big women's program. And so my advice is always just like get them in the door. Just bring them up, let them see like what's going on, introduce them to people there so it's like less intimidating. If you're just like, oh, just come watch me train. Like you don't have to train, just come watch me. And I was like, if you can get them in the door, I think that that's like usually a good step on getting them to like on the mats. And then you can have, you know, other people like talking to them, trying to like, you know, get them excited about it or whatever. Because I usually say like there was actually a mom that she's like all of her kids train and her husband train. Her husband's a blue belt at our academy. And she was always there, like just watching class and because her kids were there and that kind of thing. And I'm like, why don't you train? Like I started a women's program. Like, why don't you just get on the mat? You're here anyway. And then she's like, no, it's not for me, not for me. And I just kept at her a little bit. And I don't know what changed in her mind, but she's like, okay, I'm going to try it. And then got her on the mats, and now she's blue belt and she's like loving it. And like the whole family trains now. So I'm like, yeah, you can't do it. So I think like just getting more familiar with the gym and feeling comfortable there is like a big step in like making them more comfortable to like open to the idea of actually training and letting like people sweat on you.
Yeah, that's always the complaint is you guys are so sweaty. I don't want to get like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
we are.
and it's important, like the first experience, having a good experience, like she's training with like another female or like a guy or like you want them to be comfortable. I've had a bad situation where one of my friends, he brought his wife in, and this was before I had started training. So he brought his wife in and he put her with like a guy that's just kind of like, he just like kind of let her go. And then she had to be partnered with this dude that was like way bigger than her and like super intimidating and super sweaty and that kind of thing. And so she was just like, yeah, it's just not for me. And I'm like, you just abandoned her. You bring her into the class and then you abandoned her. Like, I can't believe you did that. So you need to make sure she's like paired up with the right people or like really comfortable. And you're like kind of like taking care of her, like while she's with her first experience.
Yeah, that's kind of what we did with my wife is my daughter started training, I started training and she was there. And then I
Yeah.
started working on her. The coaches started working on her. And then when she just worked with one of the female coaches. And now there's a group of them that like they go to the morning classes together. So that is
Yeah.
kind of the easy way to move her in.
Oh yeah, that's it. That's perfect because otherwise it can go very bad.
For sure. All right. So I know that you guys, like I said, you guys used to live in Missouri, but now you're based in San Diego. Is that right? When did you guys make that move?
We moved to San Diego. It's been almost like 4.5 years. Yeah. So I think in August it'll be 5 years that we've been here. And I love it.
Yeah.
San Diego is amazing.
Yeah. San Diego's definitely an amazing place.
Yeah, it's a lot better than Missouri.
So obviously every state is different with their, with their COVID lockdowns and various degrees of it. What's it like training in Southern California, for the past year?
So I think we had maybe, I don't know, it was maybe a month and a half, 2 months of like not really training. And then, so I think from March and April, we were pretty much shut down last year. And then in May, I know like a lot of the higher belts competitors started kind of secret training together. And then in June, we like came back to training pretty but it was like all separated, like
The squares on the mats, that kind of thing.
yeah, that kind of a thing. That didn't last very long because everybody that came back were like, no, like we want to train. We're here because I'm tired of doing these drills on Zoom. Like I want to like train and roll with my partners. Cause like the first class, I think everybody did their own like individual like thing. And then they were like looking at like professor, like, can we roll? Like, and he's like, if you guys want to roll, we can roll. Like, so then, we've been really fortunate in that we never closed back down and everything kind of just like has been pretty normal since really July has been that way. And then now we had like one time where we had like health department come by, but we just boarded up the windows basically, and then we come in the back door and train normal. So I'm pretty fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, that's sort of how we did it too. We did like one or two classes by yourself in the square, and yeah, I appreciate that they were trying to help us, but
Yes.
it's not the same as
no. And I mean, I think most of like a lot of the big gyms around here were kind of like when we were supposed to shut down again or all this kind of stuff. It's like everybody like talked to each other and like, no, we're like staying open. It's like a solidarity thing, and let's just we're all going to do it because it's what everybody wanted. And I think most of our students, they were willing to assume any risk. And I think for us, it's like I'd rather be training and be mentally sane and physically healthy versus like sitting at home like going crazy.
Yes, for sure. So I know that you are a pretty active competitor. What is your training look like just on a kind of normal week? Not like you have a fight in a month, but just like average week, I'm just sort of training. What does that look like?
I mean, it's funny because like my training doesn't really change that much based on fight or like not, because I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. I have an addiction to training. It's weird, but I think the intensity and the mindset changes. That's probably the only thing. So usually, when I'm just doing jujitsu, like I have like 10 a.m. comp training every day of the week, like Monday through Friday. And then I would do strength and conditioning twice a week. And then before pandemic, I would love to do some hot yoga. That's still something we don't have back really here. And I miss that because you don't realize how much your body needs that, like for recovery and like just staying healthy. But that's something, and I would just do like most of the days I'm like working out twice a week. Or twice a day. So some of the days I would do my hard training in the morning, and then in the afternoon, if I didn't do strength conditioning, I would maybe roll with my women when I'm teaching or things like that, just to get extra work in, or do like some kind of like more of a rehab-y type workout or run. I like to run a lot. So right now, things are a lot different and especially I'm actually going through some schedule changes and things like that. So I'm still training in the mornings most days, but it's different because I'm kind of all over the place with where I'm going, because I have, Muay Thai here, boxing, wrestling, Nogi Jiu-Jitsu still, so everything, and then strength and conditioning, so everything's kind of like all over the place at the moment, and I'm trying to get that more like nailed down to what I like. I like having a routine, and when I don't have it, it like stresses me out and I get sad. So I need this routine of training. If I don't sweat every day, it makes me sad.
Yes, for sure. And that's actually, so that's the perfect lead. And that's where I was heading, because I know you're transitioning into MMA. I know you've done some amateur stuff, but you kind of just signed a contract. You're, become a pro MMA fighter now. So, you mentioned you're doing Muay Thai, wrestling, still doing no-gi jiu-jitsu, that sort of thing. So what initially got you thinking about making the transition from jiu-jitsu to MMA?
Well, it's something I always wanted to do. I know like me and my husband have said this a million times and talked about it, where it's like he always, he was doing MMA when I first started training jiu-jitsu. And so I was like, oh, like maybe, I would want to do it. And he's like, just wait until like maybe you get like a purple belt or something, like get your jiu-jitsu really good. And then, you can start to like think about it. And I think that came up faster than he thought it would. And then, so when I got my purple belt, he's like, just wait till black belt. Like, don't you just want to keep training jiu-jitsu? And for me, I'm like, yeah. And when I got my black belt, he still was like, do you even want to do that? Really? Like, isn't jiu-jitsu just more fun? Like, you really want to try and get punched in the face? Like, I don't know. And so he kind of was like jokingly discouraging me, but it was something that I never really like. I wanted to do it, but also like jiu-jitsu was so important. Like I have goals and things that I wanted to achieve in that sport first before I would, and I know, training MMA, I have to take my focus away from jiu-jitsu, and I can't just be training that all the time. So that was something that I was just not really willing to give up at the time. And so, and even then this year, I was like, I don't know, like, is it really like this late in my career, like making the change, does it make sense? And then talking with like, I had a lot of, I got an opportunity to, with my wrestling coach, he paired me up to help Kat Zingano like prepare for some fights. And we were doing like wrestling sessions together, and she's awesome. And so I went and cornered her, and like, so like just helping her, it was kind of like giving me a little bit of an itch to like, oh, this would be fun. And then I got to go corner her for her Bellator fight. And she's like her, and she's like, you should do it. Like, you'd be awesome. And I'm like, I want to, but I don't know. Like, and she was super encouraging. And then watching her, like being in the corner and watching her like on Bellator, like do it. I'm like, I do want to do this. Like, it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and at least just wants to try it. But then like getting started and training, and I was like, no, if I'm going to do it, like I'm going to be like committed to it. Cause I know there's a lot of, especially jiu-jitsu competitors I hear say, like, they're all like, oh yeah, I'm going to do MMA. And then you see them like hitting pads like one time, and then nothing ever comes of it. Like that happens all the time. So I'm like, no, like, if I'm going to do it, like I'm taking time away from competing in jiu-jitsu right now, because I got offered a whole bunch of opportunities to fight on Fight to Win. I'm like, my focus is this right now, even though I would like to do it. And then I'm just really focused on that, to where I'm just like, I was like all in. I'm like, okay, I'm doing all my striking. I really have to, like, that's the area that I need to work on the most, in my wrestling, because if I can't wrestle, I can't use my jiu-jitsu. And plus I love wrestling. I've been doing that forever. Just like, I've been doing that to help my jiu-jitsu too, because it's fun. I really like wrestling. So I just like threw myself in there, and with like some encouragement, talking to people like around me that know, like my wrestling coach Justin, like he's been around like MMA for a long time, and like trained a lot of really good females. So I'm like, okay, what do you think? Like, am I crazy? And he's, no, like, I think you're good. Like, let's go, let's do it. And so, and my coach, Johnny Faria, like he was all about, he's like, I think you're going to do awesome. Like, he was super encouraging. So I was like, okay, we're doing it. Let's go. And then now I'm ready to go.
So obviously you have the solid base in jiu-jitsu, and you talked about you've been doing wrestling to help jiu-jitsu. So, you're still dialing in your schedule, but how much time are you spending on like striking versus more of the ground game?
So I'm wrestling twice a week, and I do my no-gi at least once a week. And then, aside from like full MMA sparring, then I get to do jiu-jitsu and that too. But I'm also, and then I'll maybe do something on, me and my husband will work on Saturdays with just like grappling and working on like takedowns off the wall, things like that, with like gloves on, because it changes the game a lot wearing the gloves, like so much different. But I'm trying to do some form of like striking every day of the week. I take one day off, and then like Sundays are my rest days, but I'm trying to do at least some kind of Muay Thai, hitting pads, hitting the bag or something, or boxing at least one day a week, just because that's like, I want to really focus on the areas that I need the most work in, and everything. And my goal, I like that have really good people around me. They're like not trying to turn me into a striker, not trying to like, you know, like, oh, you're going to be the best boxer. Like, no, like we want to make your striking efficient so that you can get close to people and be like taking them down using your jiu-jitsu. So it's really nice to have like smart people around me helping me with that.
For sure. And so I've rolled with a couple of MMA guys, and MMA jiu-jitsu just feels different than just like regular sport jiu-jitsu, right?
Yes.
So how are you adapting your game more to the MMA side?
You know, I feel like, and maybe it's just like my style, like, and I really enjoy Nogi. So I had more of a focus on Nogi in the last like year or so, especially like when I was getting ready for ADCC. And that's just kind of like, man, I thought I'd be happy to just get back in the gi after that. But then I put the gi back on. I'm like, I just really like Nogi right now. Like I would just, you know, I want to train the gi a couple times, but like I'm enjoying that. So I think it's been a little bit easier for me to transition because I'm not like so like lapel like grip dominated at the moment with like my style, my jiu-jitsu. So I think there's just little things about like the way you control people and then knowing like, oh, like if they can hit me in the face, like it's not really a good position to be in. So you kind of like have to, that just changes the way that you think about positions, I think. And then there's just a few other things like where I'm like trying to control people. And I know like when I first started rolling and we were doing like MMA sparring, people like I had like coaches or people like, oh, you should like, you need to be like throwing punches from here or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but then when I punch them, they like, I give them space to like escape the position and I would lose positions and stuff. So that I think was figuring out like, no, like how to be in control and like use strikes to like open things up versus like just punching because I can in that position and then like I lose my position. So I'm like I adapted it to where it's like grapple first and then like only use striking to like advance my position, not just like randomly. I
Yeah.
don't know.
No, that definitely makes sense. So, you do strength conditioning like twice-ish a week, right?
Yeah.
What does that normally look like? Are you doing more like Olympic lifts or like CrossFit style stuff? What does that training look like?
It's really like all across the board. I really like, I don't know, my trainer, Greg, is like, he's like a wizard. I always like, he has me doing different things all the time. And it's crazy because like we do a lot of lifting, like heavy lifting and like a lot of things that are like rehab the same time. So it's like I'm doing movements that is strengthening and stretching at the same time, or like a lot of things where we have like resistance bands attached to my weights. So where it's like you're getting this different like pull. So I don't know. It's just, and then it changes based on like, oh, I have this thing's bothering me, or he sees like this imbalance or whatever. And so like then we'll focus on different things. But it's like every day is more of like full body workout and like emphasizing like strengthening, like conditioning and like kind of stretching, rehab all at the same time. I don't even know half the time what we're doing. I just show up, I do what we do, and then it's like I know that I really enjoy it. Like he gets me in the best shape I've been. Like I feel like I can stay lean and like get stronger without like putting on too much mass. Because in the past I've done like I was a personal trainer before, and so I was lifting on my own. And when I lived in Missouri, like I had to work out. I worked out a lot more, like on my like strength and conditioning, because I didn't feel like I had like the jujitsu didn't push me as hard as like I wanted. So I would push myself in the gym, but I felt like doing a lot of just like regular like Olympic lifts or like, and I would do circuit training, but like in a way that I felt made me slower. I would get strong, but like it was slower. I wasn't like improving as an athlete. And so now I have like a guy that's like making me like quicker and like more like explosive and strong and really focuses on stretching and that kind of thing all at the same time. So I'm really happy with what I have right now there.
Awesome. And so you mentioned kind of the stretching and you kind of build some of that into your strength conditioning program. What else do you do as far as like recovery stuff, like saunas or ice baths, rolling, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean,
to
be honest, I need to be a lot better about it.
Most of us do.
That's like the thing, right? Athletes, like we destroy our bodies, and then we, neglect like the rehab and taking care of them. So, like one of the, like, I really like I have, like the Normatec boots. Those are really helpful. Just like,
Those are like those inflatable air
yeah,
leg thingies, right? How do you
yeah,
like that?
yeah. I have those, and that's really nice. And then ice baths and sauna is like always good. That's something, and it sucks because before the pandemic, I was using the sauna a lot because we have a sauna at our house, like in our complex. But now it's been closed. All the sauna is like in the like jacuzzi, like it's all closed down, like, and I can't use them. So it's one of those things where like now I have to make an appointment. I have to go somewhere to do it. So it's like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm already spending all this money like on training, and then I have to do more on recovery and rehab. So it's like, and it's just like out of the way. So you just kind of like forget about it. You're tired. I'm like, I'd rather sleep. But stretching is super important. That's like something that I need to be better about, and I'll get really good at it for a little bit, and then I'm like, oh, I'm feeling better, so I don't need it. And then you realize you do need it. And so I do use that, like stretching and like foam rolling, like that kind, or like I don't really use a foam roller. It's like usually use like lacrosse balls the most. That's like my favorite way to try and loosen up some muscles that are getting tight.
Yeah, I have one of those that it's kind of bumpy like a foam roller, and I like
Uh-huh.
it murders my calves. Like it feels
So
terrible when I'm doing it, but afterwards I'm like, yes, this thing is awesome.
I feel like that's the thing of the calf is like so hard to roll out though, because like to get the right pressure on it, like you almost have to use your other leg, or you need somebody else to like really like dig into it for you, because it's just like a weird angle that you can't create enough force on it. And that's something that gets super tight on me all the time.
Yeah, and I know like for me, like I don't push it hard enough. Like it starts to hurt a little bit, and then I kind of like puss out, and I'm like, nah,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
that's hard enough. When really I should be going a fair amount more.
Yeah. I think I know there's like, for me, the worst spot though is like in my lats, like right under your armpit, like that's gets so tight. And then I'll put that like a roll out on that, and it's just like you want to just like cry when you find the spot that like hurts really bad. And I'm just like, okay, just breathe, like, but that's probably my weakest spot, where I'm just like, I should hold this longer, but I don't think I can handle it.
Yeah. So what does your nutrition look like?
I mean, I feel like I eat pretty healthy, like most of the time, like when I'm training, especially. So during the week, I'm always like really like healthy, and the things that I'm eating, and try and keep it pretty clean, because I want to like have good fuel to get me through the rest of the workout and like the week. And if I eat like crappy, like I feel really bad for training. And so on the weekends, I'll let myself, like, we'll go, like we like to go out to dinner. It's like, and we'll have like good food and like eat a little bit more, and like have a little bit like of a cheat. But usually like Monday through Friday, I'm like very clean, like, and I do like intermittent fasting. That's something that I really, really like to do. I've been doing that for over a year, and now it's to the point where it's like it's hard for me to train with like food in my stomach. Like I prefer to train on an empty stomach now, and it's just like I've grown accustomed to that, and it's like a lot easier for me. So I think it was a little bit hard at first to figure out that kind of like how to train on that and how to do everything that I needed to, but it's been good. That's like probably the thing that I think it's been helping me the most.
And so it sounds like you do it basically every day. So you just have like a 6-hour feeding window, something like 2 to 8, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I do it a little bit longer, because like I think for women, it's like you want like it's like a 12 to 14 hour fasting window. So usually it's, most of the time I'm not eating until like dinner until like 8 or 9. So yeah, it's like usually from like 2, I think it's like around 2 o'clock is when I get lunch, to like 10 o'clock is like my eating hours usually. So, and some days, like if I'm like, man, I'm just kind of tired or I'm feeling hungry, I will have like a little snack before a little earlier, but I try and just keep like like at least a 12-hour window. And that's pretty good for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I've done it a little bit, and like the first week or two sucks. Like you feel like you want to stab somebody, right? Because you're so hungry by like 10:30 or whatever. But
Yeah.
after that, it's not that bad. Like you're
Yeah,
totally
you kind of adapt and it's like, it's not that bad. So like, I just learned that like, there's times that I need to listen to my body. Like if, I maybe didn't get like, I like trained really hard the day before and like, I'm just not I'm like feeling like I need a little bit of fuel. Like sometimes I'll just even drink like a kombucha just to like hold me over until I'm like my real meal. And so, but even then it's still within that window, like where at least like instead of having like 12 hours or 14 hours, it'll be 12, like I'll have a kombucha first and then I'll wait a little bit longer. But yeah, because it's just, there's some days where you're just like, I know I'm feeling like weak. And if I go into this with nothing to my training, like it's going to be a bad experience.
Yeah, for sure. And it's sometimes it's better to kind of listen to your body than to be like perfect on the schedule. Like you end up feeling better by doing it that way.
Oh yes.
It's more
Yeah.
like a good guide.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, it's like, yeah, I use it as a guide and it's like, I'm not like so strict that it's just, no, I can't touch it. No, because that's going to make me crazy. And then if I'm already depriving myself, like before I'm even like on a like weight cut or something like that, it's just going to make everything else way worse. So
Yeah.
I try and just, make healthy choices and do whatever I can to stay, like have the energy I need to be on the mats.
So I know you signed a couple of weeks ago or like a week ago, right? With
Mm-hmm.
Legacy Fighting Alliance. When is your first fight? Do you know yet?
No, when I signed, so they originally had told me like, oh, like, be ready for, maybe we're looking at February 19th, and that didn't happen. And so they told me they're trying to get me on March or April. So hopefully soon. I know the earliest it would be like March 26th, but they have 3 shows in April as well. So those are the shows I think they're trying to get me on. I kind of like heard a little bit about that yesterday, but there was like 4 dates starting March 26th to April 30th. So somewhere in that window, I hope.
So mid-March to end of April, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yes.
All right. So do you know who your opponent's going to be, or when you figure out the date, then you figure out the opponent?
Yeah, they haven't brought me any opponents or anything yet. So I'm just hoping it's soon.
Let's say you just kind of wave the magic wand. Do you have somebody that you would like to fight, whether it's this first one or just in the future? Like, hey, at some point I want to fight her.
I mean, not really. Like, it's not like I don't really care who it is. Like, I mean, of course, like I want to be at some point fighting like the best, because that's like, that's what I want to do. But it really just depends on, what route this goes for me. Like, whether if I get opportunities to fight for, bigger organizations, whether it be UFC or Bellator, so that's going to make a big difference on like who I would have the opportunity to fight. Right.
Sure.
So, but I just know like, I'm really lucky. I have like a lot of really good professional women around me that are kind of guiding me and like helping me and pushing me in training. And so, getting those experiences to train with girls that, have done it, have been on the biggest stages and, professionals, and they're like willing to spar with me and help me out in whatever way they can. And we like trade little secrets, and then that's nice because it makes me feel more comfortable and like confident, like that I can do this.
Do you have anybody either in jiu-jitsu or MMA that you kind of look up to, like, hey, he or she is amazing and I want my career to kind of go like that, or I love their game?
I mean, honestly, like For MMA, like I said, Kat Zingano has been like super helpful, and she's awesome. We have very like similar styles on like the way we like to fight. So just we kind of figured that out training with each other. So she's kind of like, you know, a guideline for me, and she's been guiding me through everything. She's been super helpful. She's the one that like introduced me to her manager Ed, who's one of the promoters for LFA. And so she's been, but I just like, I kind of like take a lot of like guidance from her. And like, so, you know, both on a personal level and then like just looking at like things that she's done through her career. And, you know, she's fought for the title. She's done like everything really. And she's been around for a long time. And then, you know, she's a wrestler, jiu-jitsu girl too. So it's, you know, a good match for me. And, you know, that's just kind of probably like my MMA idol at the moment.
All right, that works. So I have kind of a weird question for you, but I know that most women who have some sort of, you know, influence online, they have to deal with creepers at some point, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I saw the eye roll, so I'm assuming that's the case with you as well. Is there one like really weird thing that kind of like stands out in your mind, like that was just like the craziest shit somebody's ever sent me?
Well, I mean, yeah, actually, I will say this because, like, I think because I've been in jujitsu and, like, in jujitsu, my persona, like, it's always been like the bishops. It's like me and Tyler. So I think I get less like creepy stuff than a lot of the women do because we like talk about these things. But the worst one is like I had a guy send me a like it was like I say it's a butthole pic. Like that's what it was. Like he was literally taking a selfie. He had his pants down and it was a selfie with him like in the mirror, like spreading his butt cheeks. And I'm like, what is this? And I don't know why you would send that. Like, it was like, so it's like not dick pics, but you know, butthole, that makes sense. Cause that's what women want to see. I don't know. Like that was probably the creepiest, weirdest thing I've gotten other than I had somebody recently ask me if I wanted to get paid to tase guys or kick them in the nuts and something else. And it was a paid gig. And I'm like, and I think something about, yeah, and feet pics. That's always a thing.
Yes. All right. So the first lesson is don't be a creeper online. That's the first thing that
Yeah.
women don't like it. It doesn't,
No.
they don't respond well to it. And the
No.
second, I'm guessing, is buttholes are not attractive. That's just my guess.
Yeah. I don't know anyone that wants to see that. I mean, I've never met anybody at least.
All right, so back to training. So you know, let's say you're getting ready for like a big competition or whatever. You mentioned like your training doesn't change, but let's say it's like the day of, right? What does your routine look like, kind of getting ready that day?
The day of a competition.
Yeah.
I usually like to keep it pretty chill. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think like, so the last couple of things I've competed in, like, it's like fight to win. So it's nice because you have like a whole day to prepare, like, because you're fighting, like, I'm usually not fighting until like almost 10 o'clock in the evening. So I just kind of like relax, like keep my mind off of the fight because I don't like to like get like too in my head in the zone, that kind of thing, because it just makes me a little bit like, I feel like that adds too much pressure and too much nerves. So I really try and just relax as much as I can. I'll do some stretching. I'll get in the hot tub, just kind of like, you know, make sure that I'm really well hydrated and just kind of like chilling out, usually with my husband. And then, you know, get to the venue and like do a little warm up and stuff before I compete. But I still like, I don't like, I'm not one of those people that I like to keep things light and loose. I don't like to be like super intense, like focused, like just put headphones on and like don't talk to anybody. That's like that makes me so nervous. I hate that. So I usually will do like I just like to have a conversation and like talk about things, but usually not about the fight. Like all the strategy and stuff, like if you put that in my head the day of, I'm like, no, like that's what we've been preparing for this whole time. Like I don't need to talk about that now and change it, like there might be little things to remind me of like my game, but like I don't want to be too all about that on the day of. I'm like, because that makes me feel like I not prepare? Like if we're trying to do things right now, like am I not prepared well enough? So I'm like, no, I trust that my training prepared me, and then like just try and stay as like relaxed as I can up until like it's time to go.
So let's say it's like 30 minutes before the fight. Like what are you doing for that last 30 minutes before you kind of walk out onto the mats?
So usually I'll do like a little run, like just to like get a sweat going. I'll just like kind of like just run for a little bit to do some like plyometric stuff that you kind of do to warm up like before most jujitsu classes. And then I'll roll around a little bit, just like get my hands warm. I like to do a nice like warm up, just like rolling and then stretching. And then, I do that, and that's usually about it. Like just a little movement to get warm and moving and ready to go. And I like to like make grips if I'm doing a gi thing, like making great break grips just to get my hands nice and warm, because I feel like that's something that takes forever to warm up when you have arthritis like in your fingers from
Like
so
most of us, our hands
training.
are somewhat locked like this.
Yes, and they look so like terrible. This is the ugly hand.
Yeah.
Like these are not feminine hands. Come on.
Cool. All
Yeah.
right. So, we're going to have to wrap it up in a minute because I know you have other stuff to do and you got to keep training, but
Mhm.
I know you're moving to MMA. What does the future hold for you? As you see it in a year, 3 years, something like that? Where are you going to be?
I mean, hopefully fighting at like the highest level. Like that's what I want. Like I want to get some experience, and I kind of want to do this like, as quickly as I can. I actually was telling my husband, I was like, Lovato kind of did it right. Like he built his career in jiu-jitsu. So maybe he's like another person I'm like kind of looking at as like a guideline for how to do this, like this thing. Cause he did his thing, and like, then was able to like fight and win and defend like a championship. So, I know he had to retire because of other reasons, like early, but he kind of, I feel like came on the scene and like made his name known in MMA, and like got to where he, got to that highest level like pretty quickly. And so I'm like, you know, I could see, wouldn't mind following that same path.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to build one, that's a pretty solid plan to follow for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So if people want to connect with you, follow you, where should they go?
You can find me. Probably I'm most active on Instagram at Jena Bishop BJJ. You can check out my podcast. It's Not Fighting. And I have a website, bishopbjj.com. You can find info about the website or about the podcast. And we're on I think all platforms, like anywhere you would listen. YouTube, our YouTube channel is Bishop BJJ. So that's where I'm at.
Cool. Yeah. So Jenna, I really appreciate it, guys. Make sure you go check her out. So it's Jena Bishop BJJ, and there's only one N in Jenna
Yeah.
when you're doing that search. And then, like I said, I found her and Tyler on YouTube. So it's the Not Fighting podcast, but Spotify, Stitcher, all those places. Make sure you go and check them out.